speaking of Yosemite Sam, fun fact: Yosemite Sam is Jewish.
What?
Yeah,
Because he's played by Mel Blanc. I mean,
well, his full name is Samuel Michelangelo Rosenbaum, and
Really?
Yep, and he's based on Friz Freleng, and yeah, apparently he's Jewish.
Wow. Well, Friz Freleng was, right? So
yeah. So I thought that was a pretty funny fun fact that I learned recently.
There were Jewish cowboys, so you know.
Yes, it is almost Hanukkah. Well, when we're recording this, it's Hanukkah is close. It's coming.
Is it pronounced Hanukkah or Chanukah? I mean, I've never been sure. Sorry, can't. I couldn't even keep a straight face.
I think Adam Sandler has answered that in one of his Hanukkah songs. It's not pronounced Chanukah.
Yeah.
The C is silent in Hanukkah, so read your Hooked on Hanukkah. Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Evan Crean. I'm co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living.
My name is Megan Kearns. I'm a contributor to Edge Media Network, and I too am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
And I'm Dave Riedel. I write sometimes for Salt Lake City Weekly, and I am also a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. Yes, I am.
And yes, you are. Yes, we all are. So, on this week's episode, we have movies per usual, and we've got...
What if one week we're like, we don't have anything this week, kids. Bye. And the episode's like 2.5 minutes long. Read the Patreon.
It would be like our tangent piece episode, which was the one episode I think we aired that was not actual real movie content and just clips of us talking about ridiculous shit.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was a clip show. Forgive us. Anyway, movies this week. We've got Nomadland. We've got Lovers Rock, which is part of the Small Axe series.
I was
on
so
Amazon.
disappointed that it wasn't a Sade movie, by the way. Anyway.
Great album.
Yes.
We also have Freaky, which is a horror comedy. And we have I'm Your Woman. And so also I wanted to mention on this week's Patreon exclusive audio, we discuss A Patron's Choice, Full Court Miracle, which is a Disney Channel original sports movie that we talk about in honor of Hanukkah because it's one of very few Hanukkah movies, and Hanukkah starts this week. So anyway, you should definitely listen to us talk about that movie and maybe not see it, but just listen to us talk about it.
Definitely not see it.
I mean, if you've already got Disney Plus, whatever, but...
No! Definitely listen to our conversation about it.
I feel like one of the bonuses of Disney Plus is that movie wouldn't be available on it, you know? Oh.
Anyway, we had a lot of fun talking about it. So if you're not already on our Patreon, definitely head over to patreon.com/spoilerpiece and you can listen to that in this week's exclusive audio. But we are here to talk about Nomadland, which is the first film we're going to talk about on this week's slate, which stars Frances McDormand. And Megan, remind me who directed Nomadland.
It's written, directed, and edited by Chloe Zhao.
Yes, that's right. I knew I was going to mispronounce Chloe Zhao, so I'm glad that you got to it before I did.
Yes, I had to double check the pronunciation to make sure it was correct.
So this is... I'll just read a quick IMDb plot summary. Following the economic collapse of a company town in rural Nevada, Fern, Frances McDormand, packs her van and sets off on the road, exploring a life outside of conventional society as a modern-day nomad.
Yeah.
Oh, that is not what I thought it was going to be about.
I think that was exactly what I thought it was going to be.
I didn't see it.
But I did also read a little bit about the film before I saw it.
Got it.
And yeah, it's... I think one of the things that's really cool about this film is that, you know, there's Frances McDormand and David Strathairn. Strathairn? How do you say his name? I always fuck it up.
Strathairn,
All of us are saying it differently.
Sure.
Yes.
Not sure, but it's close.
Yeah, and like most of the other people in this film, a lot of them I heard are actual nomads. They're actual people who live this life.
Mhm.
And so I think that is a really interesting touch in the film and lends it, I would say, a lot of authenticity.
Mhm. Yeah, actually, Chloe Zhao and Frances McDormand and the crew also, while they were filming, I think it was over a period of like 4 months, they all lived in vans as well.
Yes, I did hear about that. And they were talking about shitting in buckets on the trip.
Mhm.
And
When you live
Oh
in a
my.
van.
yeah,
Were they vanned down by the river? That's the important question.
remember them being down by any rivers, actually.
No rivers. The ocean at
bummer.
one point, but no rivers.
Yeah. And we were saying this off mic, but honestly, like Frances McDormand is just always fantastic.
Mhm.
And I don't think I would normally have been interested in seeing this movie, but I knew it was Frances McDormand and I knew she was just going to knock it out of the park, and which she absolutely does with this film. She just, I don't know, she just has this way
got
of
that
like
thing.
crawling inside characters.
Mhm.
And
She melts
you
into
just
the role. Yeah.
she absolutely does in this role. She feels so, this character feels so lived in and so natural for her. And she really carries this film. I mean, like, it is hers to carry. It's her story. And I think Fern has a pretty tough backstory living in this industrial town, and the town shuts down because the mill there that they work for closes and her husband has passed away. And so she really, at the opening of the film, she's, digging a few things out of a storage container where she keeps all of her possessions, and then she loads it into her van where she keeps the rest of her possessions. And then she's on the road doing odd jobs. She works for Amazon, which we see her working at Amazon, which is kind of creepy, but it's seasonal work and it's steady work that she and her friends need to get by. And we see her.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say Amazon is actually a huge hirer of people who live out of vans. So yeah, so it's actually kind of not surprising that Amazon would be featured prominently in this, just for authentic reasons.
Yeah, that definitely, that tracks.
Yeah.
But she works other places too. Like she works at restaurants, and she works at a campground, like a national park, where she's, I don't know what to describe it, like a groundskeeper, all purpose kind of, like she kind of does a little bit of everything. She has all kinds of different jobs, and that's definitely fascinating to see.
Yeah, she also, it's interesting too, the job, her kind of job journey, because as like right from the start, she's looking for permanent full-time work, and she's looking for that throughout the film. And we learn eventually that she had a full-time job back in Empire, Nevada, in her town, and she was in human resources. But then after, the town kind of collapsed, she did, various jobs, like she was a tutor and she did this and that. And it's kind of super sad to see when she's when she's talking to a person in an employment office and they're just like, I can't hire you for anything. Like there's just nothing.
Right.
And yeah, it's so sad. So she's just kind of bouncing around to different jobs, and it just kind of shows the economic struggles.
Yeah. And to your point, Megan, she's stuck in this really horrible place career-wise because she can't really retire. She has nothing to retire on. And even though she might be nearing what some people would say is retirement age, like she can't. But then that also makes it hard for her to find work.
Right.
And I think there's a line about that she's kind of stuck in this awkward position.
Yeah.
So you really feel for her.
Mm-hmm. But there's so many interesting things about like commentaries on not just the economic collapse and not just struggling, because the whole film is based on the book by Jessica Bruder about how people who are older were, that because of the economic collapse, they turned to van life because it was much cheaper and it offered mobility and a way to travel and all of that. And it's seeing that in this film, and there's that element of it, clearly the undercurrent. And there's a fascinating conversation when she later in the film goes to her sister's house, and her sister has a very traditional lifestyle and a big house, and her brother-in-law is a realtor, and one of his colleagues who's another realtor is talking about the great real estate boom and how real estate, you always end up on top and you're always profiting. And she's like, I have to disagree with you. And she talks about how she thinks it's gross that, they're encouraging people to, spend all their money and go into debt just to buy a house they can't afford. And it really is this great commentary, about that and what we really prioritize. And throughout the film, the people who are real life van dwellers are talking about, how they didn't want to, they didn't want to retire and then not have the time to actually enjoy their lives. Or there's the woman who tells the heartbreaking story about a friend in hospice and how they couldn't travel. And she's like, I didn't want my boat to be sitting in the driveway when I died. She's like, my boat is out here in the desert. And so there really is this line about, economic, struggles and issues with, finances, but there's also commentary on what do we really value and what do we really put our time and money in? And is it worth it? Why are we chasing this American dream that's just a bunch of bullshit that we've been fed? And so both of those threads, which are, kind of overlapping many of the same issues, it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating that this film is unpacking that. And a lot of Chloe Zhao's films do unpack that, or I say a lot. Her two other films are looking at, struggling communities. The two other films she did, Songs My Brother Taught Me and The Writer, are looking at Indigenous communities, but also looking at, financially struggling, within those communities. And so it's interesting that she's still continuing this thread in this film too.
Yeah, I haven't seen other films, so that's good info to know this is kind of fits thematically with some of her other work. And yeah, there's Dave, I think this movie is up your alley.
It so is. It so is. It's slow. There's gorgeous cinematography of these beautiful landscapes.
Yeah, just gorgeous vistas.
Yep.
And I don't think it's.
But it's not long though, right?
It's not 4 hours, no, but it's still great.
Yeah, okay. It comes in under 2 hours, but I mean, it's definitely a deliberately paced movie.
Sure.
There's lots of quiet moments. There's a lot of, like, at the end when Frances McDormand goes back to the factory town and walks around the abandoned town in her old house, and there's a lot of quiet moments in the film where she's kind of alone with her own thoughts, and seeing her journey throughout the film is really interesting too. I like that she is a very fiercely independent person.
Yes.
And when, other people try to get her to kind of settle down, she's like, no, I'm not going to do that.
David Strathairn is trying to help her at one point, and she's like, nope, I got it. I'm fine. Because she's cleaning out her van because there's ants in it. And she does.
And then he drops those dishes that are one of her only precious things, and they shatter on the ground.
Her dad gave them to her. It's so sad. Yeah. No, but her fierce independence is really fascinating to watch and great to see. I want to talk about my absolute favorite scene, which, oh my God, I could not stop crying. When I was writing my review for this film, I could not stop crying every time I thought about this scene. I might actually start to cry talking about it on the show.
Oh no.
It's so good. It's when she's talking to Bob, and Bob Wells is a person in real life who really does teach people about how to live out of a van and about van life and tips and all of that. And she's talking to him about the film because there's these van conventions where people get together and they talk about pooping in a bucket and what size bucket you should get, which, by the way, I love.
Oh my God.
I am obsessed with watching van conversions and school bus conversions and schoolies.
I had a friend who did that.
Yeah. Bus conversions. Yeah. And I'm obsessed. So anyway, I love that they talk about that. And there are so many touches of that. But when she talks to Bob, and she talks to him throughout the film, and he says, you're in the beginning of the film, he says, you're in the right place. You've had all this loss and it's tremendous. And it really is, thinking about how she lost her husband, her job, her home, her community. She lost everything. And she's still so resilient, but it's clear she's, working through all this trauma and this grief. And towards the end of the film, almost at the very end, she's talking about, how she stayed in the town and why she stayed. And it was because she didn't want her husband's memory to just be gone, because she felt like if she left, it was like he never existed. And Bob Wells gives this amazing speech where he talks about his son who committed suicide. And he talks about how he wasn't sure how he could get through the day, and he wasn't sure, if he could even live, because how could something like that happen? And he talks about, like people their age, they dealt with so much grief and loss. And he says, there's something out here on the road. Nobody ever says goodbye. They just say, I'll see you down the road. And he's like, and you'll see your husband Bo again down the road, and then you can reminisce then. And it's a scene that is just so beautiful and so tender. It's kind of, it speaks to the writing, but it also speaks to Frances McDormand's abilities as an actor, because here's someone who's a real person who is saying these things, and Frances McDormand is just blending in so seamlessly with the real life people, and it's hard to tell where the reality begins and the acting ends, and it's flawless, and I just love that scene, and it makes me laugh every time I think about it.
Yeah, that was a great scene. I also love the scene where she's talking to her sister, and her sister is expressing all these things about their relationship that she felt like she couldn't or didn't have the courage to say when they were younger. And I thought the way that she bared herself in that scene too was really amazing.
Oh my God. Yeah. And when she talks about how her sister Dolly says, I needed my sister, but she also talks about how she was so brave and honest, and she was always different than everybody because of her bravery and honesty. It was so great. And it is really, it's this push-pull, because like I want to see Fern connect with people, but it's clear she has a problem connecting with people, or like she kind of, like, she's clearly like friendly with a lot of people and she has these connections. But when like David Strathairn wants her to stay, and because he's decided to not live in the van anymore because his son had a baby and he's now living in a house, and he's like, you could stay, you could live in the guest house in the back, and I really like you and I like having you around. And there's that great scene where in the morning she gets up before everybody else and she's in her van, but then she's like watching the house, and then she's moving through the house almost like she's kind of trying it on for size to see if she could go back to that, and she just leaves. And it's like, I'm kind of glad she did, because she stuck to what works for her, but it's also, there's something really sad about that too.
Yeah, Dave, I think you're really gonna like this movie when you see it.
Okay.
This movie's amazing. The cinematography is just gorgeous. The acting is incredible. It's the score is so good.
It is a good score.
Oh my.
Yeah.
This is just such what I said in my review is that it's a visually poetic and lyrical film, and it absolutely is. And I could have whirled for hours and hours. I loved everything about it.
Yeah. It's a good, solid movie. So, should we move on to Lovers Rock?
I'm sad to leave Nomadland, but yes, we should go on to the thing.
Okay.
I think I'm just going to watch Nomadland again.
Fair enough. All right. So I think it takes we should just take a brief moment then to talk about Small Axe, which is a series of films for Amazon that are written and directed by Steve McQueen, I think, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so there's several of them. They've only released 3 of them thus far. There's 2 more on the way. They've released Mangrove, Lovers Rock, which we're going to talk about, and Red, White, and Blue. And then there's a couple other films. There's Alex Wheatle and Education, which are yet to come. But we saw Lovers Rock, which the kind of, I would say the theme, at least of the ones that I've seen, involved the West Indian community in the London area during different time periods. And this is about a house party in West London during the 1980s. And it's kind of like takes place entirely over the course of this, one crazy night out at this party. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's just seeing all these people going to this party, setting up for the party, going there, being at the party, and then leaving the party. It's pretty much right. It in terms of plot. And it's pretty short too. It's 70 minutes. So it makes sense because there's it's a little bit light on plot, I think, even though we see a lot of stuff happen.
Oh my God. A lot of things happening.
Right.
Yeah, but it is
a lot
very
of
light
stuff
on plot.
happens.
But anyway, I was just going to dive in, but I want to.
Well, I was just going to say, because I haven't talked much yet.
I know, that's what was gonna wait.
I really I dug this. I mean, unfortunately, it's a short movie, but nothing happens in this movie. I mean, everything happens, which is what always happens in movies where nothing happens. But you know, this movie's 70 minutes long, and I would say 40 minutes of this movie are watching people dance.
I would say, say so.
And that's cool. It's actually really cool. I mean, this is a really good looking movie too, I thought.
And I would say that about all these Small Axe films that I've seen thus far. Just really beautifully shot, just fantastic cinematography and really great camera work, and just some really dynamic visual things to see. And this party, it's all about the dancing and all different angles of the dancing, and focusing on people's hands and hips and shoulders. It's very artfully done across all three of the films that I've seen, but this one in particular really zones in on the music and the dancing. And I have to say, to me, this was, I think, my least favorite of them, mostly just because it's so light on plot. Like, I like watching people dance, and those scenes are gorgeous, but I feel like there's only so much I want to see, where I feel like I'm watching, I feel like I'd rather just be at this party than watch other people party, but that's just my...
Well, that's why I liked it so much, because being in quarantine, for 9 months, I haven't been to a party in God knows how long. And seeing that just made me yearn for dancing and touch and connection and, all of those things that we miss when we're virtual with people. And just the excitement of getting ready for a party, like dressing up and getting excited with your friends, and watching the party and how they lay the food out, and they're prepping the food and getting the music equipment, and just everything, all those little details, and watching the dancing and how they're sweating. And and my favorite scene in the film is when, I think it's about halfway through, but they're all singing to the music, and it's just kind of all in, and it's just beautiful. This beautiful moment of connection and connectivity and unity, and it just made me miss those things. Which but it's beautiful, and it is beautiful to watch, and I love watching dancing as well. And I loved it. I thought it was wonderful to live in that world for a little while.
Agree.
But it's so interesting talking about how it's light on plot, and I know we keep saying that, but and we've also said there's so much happening. There's so much going on about gender. There's so much going on. I mean, there's an attempted rape that the female protagonist stops, and then she's threatened by the almost rapist, and then the guy who she ends up connecting with, he jumps in. And so there's all of these really interesting things about gender and gender issues and rape culture, going on, and there's also some racism going on too. Like, some of the guys that read are, are kind of almost harassed by some other, Londoners. So there's a lot going on here in just a very short amount of time.
Yeah. And we should mention the main character, whose name I can't remember, of course, sneaks out of her mom and dad's house to go to this party, which I loved that. And I loved the ending when she sneaks back in and doesn't get caught, totally gets away with it, gets into bed. And then her mom's like, come on, we got to go to church. And she's like,
already in her dress.
And then she just she gets up out of bed, and that's how the movie ends. And I loved that moment, because I don't know about you guys, but I don't really think I ever snuck out per se, because the doors in our house didn't lock, so I wasn't really sneaking out. It was France. So which is to say that you've always got doors that are open, because French people are like, oh, you need the natural air inside the house. So you could just kind of come and go in the middle of the night, and my parents would never know. So, but I do remember the whole thing of like, oh my God, I've been out too late, and my mom's an early riser, I got to get home, and sneaking up the stairs, and I do remember that.
I don't know, it very much reminded me of the ending of Dazed and Confused. I don't know why, something about it, just kind of like the getting home after the party. And it's not like she smokes a joint or whatever, but she just kind of lays down in bed and is like, yeah, I got away with it.
Yeah. I was really happy that she got away with it too. I was like, if this poor young woman gets caught, it's going to be such a bummer. And then she does.
And that's what's so great about it. I mean, yes, like, as we're talking about, like, attempted rape and racism, I was going to say it's so light and lovely, this film, but but aside from those two horrible things, which are incredibly awful, of course, there is a lot of just joyousness in this film and a lot of, just happiness. And so I'm so thrilled to see her get away with it. And also I love that this couple have, this burgeoning romance and they have this connection. And, I've definitely had many times where I've like stayed up all night with someone, that you're having this amazing time with. And it's just lovely to see that too.
Yeah. True.
Agreed. So
we got a lot to say, I guess.
Well, I mean, it's 70 minutes of movie.
Yeah.
I feel like we've described it, but I think to Megan's point, that's something I've noticed that's a common thread throughout these Small Axe films of the three that I've seen so far, is that there is, despite pain and suffering and racism and all kinds of awful things, there are still moments of joy, and there's moments of joy and dancing and celebration and partying in spite of it all. And that is something that's an undercurrent that I love, at least of the three I've seen so far.
Yeah. I mean, Steve McQueen has been very vocal about why he created this, filmic anthology. And that's, I think, a big part of it. Like he's talked about, he obviously wanted to bring more representation of Black people to British film because there's just not enough. I mean, there's not enough anywhere. And so there's that. But I mean, that's certainly something I've, read and heard many Black people talk about, is that, you obviously have to find those moments of joy, and it's great to see in the films, these moments of beauty. So yeah. So I can't wait to see the rest.
I'm sure we'll have some things to say. It's not all parties, people.
I want just dance parties.
Yeah. But so do we have anything else about Lovers Rock, or should we talk about Freaky?
Let's talk about Freaky.
So Freaky is a horror comedy brought to you by the writer-director of the Happy Death Day movies. So if you've seen those, you kind of get an idea of what you're getting into. This is Christopher Landon, the Happy Death Day franchise. It's similar horror comedy, I would say. So if you like those movies, you probably will like this one.
Yeah. Son of Michael Landon, I might add.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it's also co-written by Michael Kennedy too.
Yes. Thank you.
Sure. So the only reason, I mean, of course, it's always good to have that, but I think the other reason, and I know we're going to dig into this in a moment, but I think the other cool thing is that they're both out gay men. So
I did not know that.
Well, actually, Michael Kennedy might be queer. I don't want to say he's gay because he might be queer. But Landon is an out gay man.
Cool. I feel like I'm learning all kinds of good stuff. Thank you. Thank you, co-host.
I'm here to bring all the queer information.
You're to impart queer information. I love it.
Yes.
So this movie is a body swap movie. Let's just lead with that. But the body swap premise is that a high school girl is stabbed with a magical dagger and body swaps with a serial killer who is played by Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's really the important part. So
that's really all you need to know. I mean,
yeah. And it does happen on Friday the 13th, by the way, the actual body swap, which is pretty hilarious because they kind of like play up the preceding days.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't Happy Death Day take place on Friday the 13th?
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
I know it was released on Friday the 13th. I don't know if it takes place on Friday.
But yeah, there's a similar streak in these in terms of the horror comedy. But what else do we have to say? What did you guys think of the movie?
Well, I just want to say, speaking about Friday the 13th, I also think it's interesting that the serial killer, the butcher, is also in the beginning wearing kind of like he's wearing like an artifact mask, but it kind of looks like a shitty hockey mask. Very.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great point. I didn't think about that mask in that way as I was looking at it. I just thought like, okay, that's a mask, and there's just off the wall in this art collector's house. So there's all kinds of weird artifacts lying around, including this dagger, which has magical powers of body swapping.
Well, I liked Freaky. I mean, people are kind of freaking out about it. Like they really are getting a big kick out of this. And while I think it has its moments, I don't think it's the big fucking awesome cool movie that I've really been reading a lot about. It's like, and I think the problem is that I feel like Vince Vaughn and Catherine Newton, who plays the other main character whose body he swaps with, I don't feel like they're playing the same person when they swap bodies. You know what I mean? Like he's not playing her, and she's does better at playing him. I think, Megan, you said that off mic earlier, that she feels more like him than he does her.
Yeah, because he doesn't really say too much in the beginning, so I feel like we don't really have a sense of who he is, but I feel like she's trying to evoke him in the way she talks and what she says and her body language. Yeah, but he just feels like, I'm going to be an effeminate girl, and that's like kind of it for me.
Right. And, you know, it's, I suppose that's kind of funny that Vince Vaughn, who is 6.5 feet tall almost, would, you know, be a 17-year-old girl, but it just says, it speaks a lot to his charisma that he can more or less pull this off. And also, when he switches back to his old self, he is actually very scary.
Oh my God, yes.
Right, yeah. That's a great point that you made, though, about the performances, because I actually really enjoyed this movie quite a bit. And I think part of it is that I enjoy this kind of blend of horror and comedy that Christopher Landon has put out into the world. I dig whatever it is. And I wasn't thinking that hard about the performances, but now if I look back, I do agree with you that Vince Vaughn is kind of playing more generic kind of character, even though I did enjoy seeing him play this generic character, because you're right, he does, I think, have the charisma to pull off that performance. And I do wish we saw him more in the serial killer role. I wanted to see more of that in the beginning. And I know for plot reasons, they kind of just have to jump into it. But it was kind of fun watching him be really evil. And I would like to see him be more evil in more things.
Agreed.
Yeah. Well, I think he's an underrated dramatic actor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that season of, what's it called?
True Detective.
True Detective that he was in. I mean, that story was just dog shit, but
I couldn't even finish it.
So bad. Don't waste your time. Don't go back.
Oh my God. I only got like 4 episodes in, and I was like, once they shot Colin Farrell at point blank range, and then the next episode he was fine, I was like, okay, fuck this.
Well, I watched all the episodes and they did not get better. So you guys were very smart to bail.
Yeah. But I thought Vince Vaughn was really effective in that role as the bad guy. He was like kind of the one good thing about it. And so it was just kind of, I think it was, I can't believe I'm going to say such negative things about Freaky when I actually, during the experience of watching it, I was having a good time, but it doesn't hold up when I think about it, because I think it's a real mistake to have him wearing that mask in the beginning, because you can't see his face and his mannerisms and things like that and know whether she's emulating them. You know what I mean? I think she's pretty effective when she's playing the serial killer. She's got those like, she kind of does that thing where she kind of tilts her head down, but her eyes are looking up. And the scene, this is one thing I think they did really well, when they both have to learn how strong or not strong they are. Like he's used to being this 6.5 foot tall guy who's a powerhouse, and all of a sudden he's in this, 105 pound body, or however much she weighs. It looks like she's pretty small. And then she's like, oh my God, I'm fucking huge. Jesus, this is crazy. Yeah. And she gets kicked in the balls once. She's like, oh my God, I have balls. Which it was kind of a cheap gag, but at the same time, I'm like, that is probably something I would be curious about if I had something that I never had before. So I don't know. That was kind of cool, but I also found, you're going to think this is strange coming from somebody who likes horror movies as much as I do, I found some of the violence terrifically off-putting.
Really?
Like, the table saw?
The table saw.
That was fucking awesome, by the way.
First of all, the table saw, you see, like, unfortunately, a lot of these kills you see coming, like in the beginning, and when he kills the 4th kid in the house at the beginning, the first thing he does, he throws a spear or something at her. I can't remember what, and it lands it lands in the wall. Yeah. And I was just like, well, we know how this scene's going to end. And then it ends with her being impaled on that, because of course it does. And so when you see the table saw in the shop class, it's just like, gee, I wonder how they're going to use this, Alan Ruck, so.
Yeah, he was so good as the asshole teacher. I so badly wanted a one-liner after she killed him and cut him in half. I was really hoping she would say something like, measure twice, cut once.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not that kind of movie, but that would be a good line. Yeah. And it was also interesting to see Alan Ruck play such a douchebag, because I don't know that I've seen him do that. But that was another thing that I found. A lot of these high school movies, you have either teachers or kids saying things that if it happened in your high school, there's no fucking way anybody would have gotten away with that. So when he's just like pissing all over her basically during like when she's herself and then when she's Vince Vaughn, it's just like, I'm pretty sure that somebody else would have gone to the principal's office and be like, Mr. So-and-so is like calling her a loser in class. That's fucking weird. You know? I don't know. That made me really angry.
Yeah.
It generally makes me angry in high school movies when you have students in class be like, that's fucking bullshit. And the teachers don't react at all. They would react. You guys talk about Freaky. You liked it more.
I actually haven't even said anything about it yet.
Yeah, I was going to say, Megan, you've been really quiet. I want to hear more about what you think of.
So I think it's a super fun film. And I enjoyed watching it, and I enjoyed the performances, particularly of Vince Vaughn and of Catherine Newton. I also love Nyla. That actress is amazing. She's also great in the Spades, and I was so glad to see her here too, because she's great. The kid who plays Joshua is good. Booker, all the performances I think are good. I had a lot of problems with this film, though, and I hate to say it. I had problems with the Aztec dagger. It is, I'm sorry, it's super, well, I'm not sorry, but it's super racist to have an indigenous curse item. It's also a trope. It's kind of like, really? This is where we're going? Okay. And then I also had a problem that Millie's empowerment comes through being in a man's body. That's kind of frustrating. I will say, though, that I do really love a lot of the, queer, like I love that, Joshua's a queer character. Get a lot, so we get overt queerness, but we also have some, undercurrents of queerness, when Booker and Millie are talking, because Millie's left a poem in his locker and he's like, I always liked you. And they're alone in a car and then they kiss and it's, Vince Vaughn and this kid, but it's also kind of creepy because like it's a teenager and Vince Vaughn's like old and like not old because he's my age, but like he's older. Like, so it's kind of creepy, but like the cool part is that it's two dudes kissing. Like that's great. But yeah, so I don't want to say, I shouldn't say I had a lot of problems, but I had problems with the film. But also there are some great things going on in this film. So, and like there are little moments like I love in the beginning when the girl is talking to her friends, the girl who ends up getting impaled, and they're talking about the urban legend of the butcher. And she's, and somebody's like surprised by it. And she's like, don't underestimate, a straight white man's propensity for violence. And I was like, oh, okay, we're open. I'm in. This movie has, and, so, and I love the twist at the end, where you think he's dead. Oh, but surprise, he comes back to, attack Millie. And it kind of felt, it's done a lot, but it feels kind of like Aliens thing where like, oh, you think everything's okay. Oops, surprise. Nope. We're still going to have another action sequence, which is great. So yeah, so I think there are a lot of things this film is doing well, but there's some things I was kind of frustrated with. So
yeah. I love that scene where he comes back and her sister and her mom all beat the shit out of him and end up killing him. I thought that was a great ending. I see what you mean, Megan, about her empowerment from having Vince Vaughn, like being in Vince Vaughn's body. But I respect this movie for going there and really thinking about like the dynamics of that, of like body swapping and how that really affects someone's psyche and being able to see like physically how they would adapt or change or feel in this physical form. And like her, realizing she has so much strength and power when she's in Vince Vaughn's body, and then him also realizing like, oh wait, this isn't as easy as I am this big white guy who can push people around. I actually have to work harder to kill people. So it may not be like perfect in how it deals with it, but I respect that the movie goes there and delves into those dynamics, because you wouldn't necessarily expect that out of a horror movie.
I don't know. I think I have higher expectations for my horror movies because I do want my horror movies to go there. But yeah, I mean, I think the issue for me is that, and you're right, everything you're saying, Evan, is totally right. And I do love that it explores it, and it definitely explores it more than perhaps a lot of other horror films might or have. I think what kind of, I don't want to say undercuts it, but I think when you have gags like getting kicked in the balls, oh, hey, it's a dude in a woman's body, he's going to grab her tits. Like, it's just kind of like cheap things like that. And I'm like, do we really need that? And maybe we do. I don't know. But it just, for me, it's like, I don't need that. It just feels so formulaic. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel really torn about it because I agree with everything you're saying, but then I'm also annoyed by certain things. But I do think thinking about bodies and how people feel differently about bodies, I can't help but think there's a trans, undercurrent to that as well. Obviously, equating identity with bodies. So, which is really fascinating, and I almost wish it had delved into that somehow more, but. Yeah, but like I said, that I feel really conflicted because there is so much I like about this film, and I think really, really works and is really, really smart in the script. But then there are a few other things I'm just kind of like, did we need that? This film would have been so much better if it didn't have that. So yeah, so I don't want to be too hard on the film because I did really enjoy it and think it's good. But yeah, but there are some things I think could have been better, and maybe that's more my thing. Is that I think this is a great film. It was so hyped up to me that I think, kind of to Dave, your point about how, there's so many people raving about this and it is fun and it is great. But I think some of those things, it would have been even better if it had, maybe had not had those things or developed a bit more.
Yeah. You know what's funny is I'm also kind of amazed by how many people don't seem to get that this is kind of a Freaky Friday thing.
Oh, they don't?
Yeah. You would not believe how many reviews I've read where people are like, this is just ripping off Freaky Friday, but it's a horror movie. And it's like, yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah.
I'm shaking my head.
Oh, but I do want to say one other thing I did love about this film: the friendship between Millie and Nyla and Josh, and then when Booker kind of joins them, the friendship between all of them is so lovely, and how they are just loving to each other. And poor Millie gets bullied, and Nyla's a Black woman and Josh is a gay man, and they all kind of band together and, kind of being othered by the school in various ways. And I kind of loved that. So I loved their friendship.
Yeah, it was really charming.
Definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say on balance, Freaky is, qualms or not, is pretty damn entertaining. But I think we should probably move on to talk about I'm Your Woman, which is the last film that we have on tap.
Okay. Let's talk about I'm Your Woman.
Let's do it.
I'm your woman. Let's see, it's I'm every woman, except I changed the word.
Yeah. I see what you did there. So this film is written and directed by Julia Hart and co-written by Jordan Horowitz. It is a 70s crime drama.
Yeah, what would be amazing if it were a 70s body swapping crime drama. That would be
too much. Yeah. So let's see. I'll do the one sentence plot summary. Just get everybody up to speed here. In this 1970s set crime drama, a woman is forced to go on the run after her husband betrays his partners, sending her and her baby on a dangerous journey.
That's true. It leaves a few things out, like the fact that the baby is stolen.
Yes.
I found that out pretty soon in the film.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. In the opening minutes, he's like, hey, I got this baby. She's like, where'd you get that baby? He's like, don't you worry about it. This is your baby now.
Yeah. You know what? I'm just going to go out and just say real quick, I really liked this movie a lot.
I loved it. So I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I liked it, but didn't love it.
Okay. But the one thing that I thought was really a poor choice was the opening voiceover, because you learn all of these things that she says in the opening voiceover later in the movie. So I think it might have been, and this is a movie that sort of, there's a lot of, like, these people are all ciphers, basically, everybody in this movie. It's like you have no idea who they are, what they're doing. Even when they tell you, you're like, is that really what happened? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And I just sort of feel like, because you learn these things about her eventually. I mean, the first thing you see, like she tells the old woman later, or somebody, I can't remember who she fucking tells, like, I couldn't have children. I guess she tells Terry. We'll get into that character in a moment. But yeah, I just, with all the mystery surrounding everything in this, I just thought that, because you guys know how I feel about voiceovers anyway. But
yeah, I think actually just I'm going to go because you're just hitting the nail on the head in terms of the thing that really didn't work in the film for me is I feel like the plot was kind of confusing, and we hear about a lot of people in dialogue, but I feel like I had such a hard time connecting who people were from the dialogue where people were talking about their backstories. And that was the thing that it was confusing to me and bothered me, but like the rest of the movie I thought was just like fantastic.
See, now that kind of worked for me because what's our main character's name? Jean. She's kind of in the dark about so much of this stuff that I kind of felt that it was appropriate that like we know the same amount of stuff she does.
Exactly.
You know? So I feel like in movies, a lot of times the audience is either ahead of the characters or they're behind the characters, where I feel like we're right there with her the whole time. It's like, who's Jean? Well, she's Jean. Who's Terry? Who's Cal? Who's, who else?
Yeah. Who's even her husband? She doesn't know.
Right. I mean, she knew Eddie was a criminal, but she didn't know he was like fucking killing people kind of criminal, I guess.
She thought he was a thief. Like she didn't even know he killed people.
I guess, yeah. I mean, and if the movie has one flaw aside from that voiceover, it's that like the guy who plays Eddie, I don't believe for a minute that guy is some kind of mastermind trying to pull off throwing over the big muckety mucks in his crime organization. But
we see him for 3 minutes.
I know, and he's just like a guy with a mustache holding a baby. It's like that guy's not scary.
Smarmy. Yeah, he's pretty smarmy.
The fact that he's smarmy makes me think he definitely would try to pull shit off.
Maybe. Yeah. I think that's probably more reflective of me than it is the filmmaking. But yeah. Megan, what about you, man?
I saw this a little while ago, and I reviewed it, and I really, really liked it when I saw it. And it's a film that's kind of stayed with me. And the more I have thought about it, the more I've loved it. And I'm a huge Julia Hart fan. Fast Color is amazing. And it's an unconventional superhero film. And I love that this is kind of an unconventional crime drama, because usually crime, we're dealing in a male-centric world. Male characters. Even when we do have women, it's usually women committing crimes, which is great too. But this is very interesting in that, Jean's not committing crimes, but she's still feeling the full ramifications of her husband's criminality. And so, so is Terry, who is Cal's wife, who we meet later in the film. And she's also dealing with, with the crime world, unfortunately. And so I loved this. I thought that the writing was so fantastic. I thought the cinematography was great. The editing was great. The restrained use of score. Like the score is great.
Oh, the music was great.
Right. Yeah. Very noir-ish.
It is, but it's also very restrained. Like there's so many scenes that are incredibly tense where a lesser filmmaker would have used score to heighten emotion, and she does not do that. She very often just has the scene play out, and I just think it's brilliant. And so I thought this was great. This is dealing with so many issues. We're dealing with infertility. We're dealing with child loss and grief. We're dealing with, not knowing who the hell your husband is. We're dealing with the fact that she's never been alone and never on her own. And here she is being thrust into this situation where everyone's telling her what to do and where to go and what not to do, not to talk to people. And then she's left alone to kind of fend for herself. And she's, scared shitless for various reasons, of course. And I just think Rachel Brosnahan, who plays Jean, does a fantastic job. And I just thought this was such a great film. I thought it was interesting. It was heartfelt. It was well done. I loved it. Thought it was great.
Yeah, I thought that aside from how I feel about Eddie, all the performances in this movie are fucking top notch, man.
Good. Yeah,
I've never watched The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Is that what it is? Okay.
Yep.
I've never seen that. When Rachel Brosnahan showed up on Saturday Night Live, I was like, who is this woman? It's like, I have no idea because there was even a show that she was in. So this is really the first thing I've seen her in. She's great. Oh my God. She looks a lot like Evan Rachel Wood, which is a little weird to me because I kept thinking, hey, Evan Rachel Wood is really good in this movie. No, that's not her. I also liked how this movie, it played with genre conventions and it went in a lot of directions. Like I thought for sure at some point when Cal drops off Jean, this is why I use actors' names. When Cal dropped off Jean, okay, real quick. So Eddie the husband gives her this baby. Some guy comes over in the middle of the night. It's like, we got to get you out of here. Here's $200,000. There's a guy named Cal outside. He's going to take you somewhere. And then she's never seen Cal before. And she and the baby go with Cal and they're nearly arrested or Cal's nearly arrested, I should say. Then they go to this house and she's left there alone. And then a neighbor comes over and she's like, hey, my friends used to live here. And you're like, did your friends used to live here?
God, so
sure, old lady. I know. Well, one of the things that I thought was so great about this movie is just like the dread, just overwhelming dread in every scene. Because you just don't know. Gene doesn't know who to trust. And because we don't know anything more than Gene does, we don't know who to trust. And so when that old lady who says she's the neighbor shows up, and then later when they're having dinner together and she's like, hey, where's the bathroom? And Gene's like, I thought you said your friends lived here. And she's like, oh yeah, I must be getting in my old age or whatever she says. And then I thought, oh my God, she's evil. But then later when she runs to somebody's breaking into her house, which I think it's Cal, actually, we never learn, and not breaking in would be the thing, but she's got that phone number she's supposed to call. I assumed that she just called Cal and that he must be nearby, and that's why he showed up at the neighbor's house. But then when he kills everybody in the room, including the old woman, I was like, well, I did not see that coming.
It makes sense though, like character-wise and plot-wise, but no.
Sure. But you still don't know, and Cal says this, like, we don't know if she set this whole thing up or if she was an innocent bystander. We don't fucking know. I had to kill her, you know?
Yep.
And it's like, wow.
Yeah. Speaking about the tension, I'm so glad you brought that up, Dave, because this movie, I was so freaking tense through this whole movie. I was like on the edge of my seat.
Yeah.
And
it is super tense.
It is so tense. Yeah. And the scenes that I love, the two scenes, in addition to that scene, which is great, that whole sequence, I also love when they're in the hospital and Cal sees the cops outside and there's nurses watching him and he goes in to grab Harry, the baby, because Harry had a fever, and they're just walking out of the hospital and it's like they're just walking, nothing else, but it is so tense. I'm like, oh my God, cops are going to stop them. Oh my God, somebody's going to stop them. Oh my God, I'm gonna get
don't look back. Don't look back. Oh, she looked back.
And then the next day when the cop is knocking on the door, the car window, and then he's like, get out of the car, get out of the car. And she's like, what's the problem here? And it's like, it's clearly that, there's a black man, because Cal's a black man and the cop is white. And, there's a commentary happening about, racial profiling. But oh my God, it's so fucking tense because you're like, I swear something terrible is going to happen to Cal.
Yeah.
Oh, this movie.
Yeah.
This movie.
Or the scene where they go to the nightclub and they're in the downstairs, and then all the robbers come in and start shooting people, and she's hiding in the phone booth, and like people are being chased in either direction by people with guns who are just mowing them down. Oh my God, that scene.
I know, you see people run one way and then you see people running the other way. Oh my God. Yeah.
And then when she gets separated from Tara, we should mention Cal eventually drops off Gene at this cabin that you learn is his like family cabin. And then his family shows up, his wife, his son, and his father. And his wife's name is Terry, who turns out to be a pretty cool cucumber character herself. She was badass, man.
Yeah, she was.
And that was something that I did not expect his family to just show up at the house. I was like, oh, wow, this movie really is going places I didn't think it would go.
Exactly.
And once I realized the baby was not in danger, I was like, that made me, I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but like for the first, hour, I'm just like, somebody's going to kidnap Harry. Then I was like, well, he was kidnapped. So, I mean.
But I love that she talks about that with Cal, and she says, I think about his mother every single day. And like, that's interesting that the film addresses that. And, that scene in the diner, which is heartbreaking. And she's talking about her infertility and how she stopped wanting a child, but she really, really did want a child. Oh my God. It's so sad, all of it. But yes, I thought the same thing. I was like, oh my God, something terrible is going to happen to Harry. But thank God. He's fine.
Yeah. And Jean turns into a badass at the end.
She does.
Yeah, she really does. She
rescues her friends in the most amazing way.
Yeah.
After crazy car wreck, followed by getting stuck in a car with two armed guys. One of whom one of whom gets shot in the head, and the other she shoots in the head. It's fucking awesome.
Well, I thought that it was like kind of perfect that, and this goes back to what I was saying about Eddie. Maybe he could pull off this kind of, Mike is the big bad guy who Eddie has double crossed. We're not really sure what Eddie did. And then Mike is there in the car, and there's two guys. One's in the back seat with Gene, and Mike's in the front seat, and the guy won't shut up, being like, "This is Eddie's wife," and so Mike kills that guy. What an idiot! Like, I mean, there's no reason for you to assume she's got a gun in her pocket, which we know she does. Right. But like, just assume she's got Eddie's her husband. He's fucking shot a bunch of people. Why wouldn't she be like that? Mike, you fucking dope. So she shoots Mike in the head because he's an idiot and doesn't see it coming. Anyway, I loved that though. How he's just talking about like, oh, don't make it worse for yourself. Blah, blah, blah. Bang. Yeah. And then she rescues everybody. Yep. Rescues Terry and Cal from the car accident they were all in, goes back to the house, sees that unfortunately Cal's dad has been killed in a shootout.
Frankie Faison. Yeah.
Frankie Faison, who's like always just is great in anything
and everything. He also has that really, it's a small scene. It's a short scene, but where he teaches Jean how to shoot a gun. And he says something, I don't remember how it's set up, but then he's like, these men and their guns. And I'm just like, it was such a like casual line, but there was like just so much to unpack in that. And then right afterwards when Jean talks to Terry about like, why is your father-in-law, why is he teaching me how to shoot a gun? And she's like, well, and she's explaining, I've been through this before. I've been on the run, blah, blah, blah. And, she's like, Eddie never told me anything. And Terry's just like, yeah, that's what they do. It's like, it's just such a commentary, on, gender and what's happening. And it was great. It's so great. And I think it's just a testament to the writing and to the acting of this cast, which is just, I think you said it, Dave, they're top notch, and I could not agree more.
I'm going to sound like a total naif here, but like when you watch movies written and directed by women that are usually written and directed by men, man, are they different. And a lot of times they're better.
Yes, they
are. So, I mean, this is just, it's a gangster story more or less. Yeah. But it's a gangster story I've never seen.
Exactly.
And in a good way. Like I love, gangster movies, but I think once you get past Goodfellas, it's kind of like, I think we've done all of this. So to see this completely different, in my view, take on this genre piece, I was just like, man, this is fucking cool.
Yeah, so I completely agree. And I also love that you said that, and of course, no group is a monolith. So, you're not always going to get something different. But I love that you said that, because the fact that this is co-written and directed by a woman, the scene which broke my heart and is such a great scene, when Jean gets separated from Terry after the nightclub shooting and it's raining and she goes into the
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah. And she sits down next to this woman knitting, and the woman's like, oh, what's going on, honey? And she just like starts sobbing, and the knitting woman gets closer to her and she's like, it's okay. And then another woman, just some rando, puts a towel around her to dry her off. It's such a lovely scene about, women just being kind and nurturing and supportive to one another when they don't even know you. And it just was great. And I do not think we would have seen that if a man directed this film. And not that men can't, obviously tell stories about women, because they certainly should and can, but it's a small detail that just speaks volumes and just is different. And it just indicates what a different film this is, and what a refreshing and unique film this is.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking about this movie in the context of that movie, The Kitchen. And I know that movie was an adaptation of a comic, so that definitely plays into it. But I feel like this movie is what I wanted that movie to be in terms of like skill with which it's made, vibe, performances, story.
Everything.
Yeah. I was just going to mention that you said this is directed by Julia Hart, which it is, and co-written by Julia Hart, but the co-writer is her husband, which I didn't know. So interesting.
Yeah, they're writing partners that often write together.
Yeah. I don't know a lot about her or him, so I just looked that up and found that out and thought that was fascinating.
Totally agree.
So,
yes.
Yeah. Something else I want to talk about, just very briefly, that I loved about this visually. I love the costumes in this film, and I love the art direction and the mise-en-scène and the color palette and everything. Like there's such striking colors, like when she has like a purple robe in the beginning and like the yellow of the patio furniture. And then there's another scene where she's wearing like something teal and she has phone, and it matches the pink flowers and the wallpaper. And it's just, I just loved it. And it's so carefully crafted. And I loved that. And it was just a visual treat, but also really immerses you in the 70s in a very kind of subtle way, but a great way.
Yeah. I appreciated the fact that, this movie is very clearly in the 70s or set in the 70s because duh. But also it doesn't shout, hey, we're set in the 70s. Right. It's just kind of like, this is how things, it's not like, look at this pink phone. It's just like, no, phones are fucking pink. Fuck you. Right.
Although there was a lot of use of that great 70s green, that like avocado green.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, Megan. The color palettes and the art direction in this film are just, they're so good and they're so immersive. It's really was something that stood out to me very early in the film, and I was just soaking in every moment of it and really enjoying that aspect of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Was this an Evan movie, or was this not an Evan movie that you just happened to like, Evan? Ooh.
No, I would say this was an Evan movie.
Oh, okay.
My beef is really around it being just kind of confusing plot wise. I think that was my only issue with it. The rest I thought was just fantastic.
Yeah.
And that was a bummer to me because I was like, I loved the rest of this movie, and if I was a little less confused about some of the goings on in the movie, it would have been like perfect 10 for me.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I was not confused, but at the same time, I also agree with what Dave said about how I think it's a nod to the fact that Gene doesn't know a whole hell of a lot that's going on, so we as the audience don't know what's going on. So I think maybe that's why I was just like, yeah, okay, we're going along with this ride.
Yeah, and I think that kind of plays itself out most in the scene when I think it's after the nightclub shooting. I can't remember. Maybe they're leaving the hotel. Terry and Gene are together, and Terry says to Gene, "You walk that way, and no matter what you hear, keep walking." And then you stay with Gene. The camera stays with Gene, and then you just hear gunshots, and you're like, "Fuck!"
Yeah,
that's Gene the entire movie.
Yep,
pretty much.
Yep.
Oh yeah, it was good times. Good times.
But I also want to finish up just kind of bringing it back to talking about Freaky. And I think I was thinking about the ending of Freaky while we've been talking about this, and it kind of has a Buffy the Vampire Slayer nod at the end of Freaky when she kind of like kicks the stake through Vince chest. And I'm thinking about, and that's kind of great. And, and don't get me wrong, that's, there is empowerment like that. And that's, fun and great to see. But what I love about this film, which is of course different genre, very different film. But what I love about this film is that Jean's empowerment unfolds slowly and it feels like it's really earned. And I kind of love that about this film. And by the end of this film.
Yes. I also like, by the way, in the final scene when everybody's dead outside the cabin or inside in some cases. Nope, outside.
Inside and outside. Oh, no, they are all inside. No, somebody is outside.
Right. Jean says to Cal's son, she finds him and Harry in the hiding place in the cabin and says, all right, close your eyes and don't open. The game is you close your eyes and you don't open them until I say you can open them. And then they get in the car because she doesn't want, the little boy to see his dead grandfather. I can't remember the kid's name. I want to say Paul, but I'm not sure. It is Paul. Okay. Yeah. So they get in the car and Paul is like looking, and she's like, all right, you can open your eyes. And he's just looking ahead. And Jean looks back at the house and Paul says, no, you can't look back. That's your rule. And it's like, man, this movie's good.
Yep.
It's like, this is, and then I loved that. I don't know. Just like lots of little touches like that are very cool.
Yep. Agreed.
Any spray. This will definitely be on my top 10 list, by the way.
Oh, exciting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do a quick recap.
Sure.
Megan and I would obviously say see Nomadland.
Oh my God, yes. Definitely.
Sounds like we're on the Sea Lovers Rock train.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's worthy to see as part of the Small Axe series, but even though I didn't love it. And see Freaky, I would say.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I would say see it. Yeah. It's fun.
Why not?
Yeah.
And we've just talked about I'm Your Woman, so I think it's fairly obvious we would all say see it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes.
For totes.
So that brings us to the end of another exciting episode of Spoiler Free Theater.
Oh wait, do we want to talk about where people can find these films?
Oh.
Yes, we do. Where can we find these films?
Nomadland, you can rent virtually through New York City Lincoln Center's virtual screening. Lovers Rock you can watch on Amazon Prime, as well as I'm Your Woman you can watch on Amazon Prime, and Freaky you can rent on VOD.
Yeah.
Or in theaters. It's also in select theaters.
But we don't recommend going to theaters.
Yeah, don't go to theaters.
We do not.
I mean, hey, you can if you're in a country that has coronavirus under control, like Australia, New Zealand. Go nuts.
Yeah.
There are drive-thrus that are playing Freaky.
Yeah. I'm just teasing.
No, but other than that, do not. Yes.
Yes. Stay safe, friends. So we'd like to say thank you so much to our editor, Otto Clammer. Thank you, Otto, for making us sound great every week. You rock.
Thank you.
Thanks, Otto.
You can find the show anywhere you can get podcasts, but you can also head over to our website, which is spoilerpiece.com. You can follow us on the social medias. We are on Facebook. We're Spoiler Piece Theater. We're at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. If you want to get in touch with us, we'd love to hear from you. You can send us an email, spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can give us a call.
862-21-PEACE.
Yes. Call the Spoiler Piece hotline and leave us a message. We'd love to hear from you. And if you like the show, tell a friend. Please rate and review us on whatever podcast platform you listen on. You can go to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. That will take you wherever you want to go. Certainly won't turn down those ratings on Apple Podcasts. They are quite helpful. But we really appreciate. And if you really, really like the show, join our Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/spoilerpiece. Each week you get exclusive audio, like this week's exclusive audio, where we talk about the Disney Channel sports movie Full Court Miracle in honor of Hanukkah, because it is a Hanukkah movie and Hanukkah starts this week.
Yeah.
So definitely check that out. There's other perks too, but we also want to say a thank you to our patrons.
We do. We want to thank Bill Scahan, Bob Chipman, Charles Nash, Chris Wilkinson, Davida Margolin, Deirdre Crimmins, Elisa, Christopher Jensen, Max Coville, Mike, Lord of the Sith, Rory Glynn, Sean Pensionar, Shauna Harris, Shelley M. McCaskill, Shona Glasgow, and Zach Pigeon. Thank you so much, patrons.
Thank you.
Thank you, patrons. And thank you to everyone who's tuned in this week. We really appreciate you tuning into the show. And now's the part where I'll do my outro. My name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living. You can follow me on Twitter and on Letterboxd as Real Recon.
My name is Megan Kearns. I'm a contributor to Edge Media Network. I too am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. You can follow me on Twitter at OpinionSWorld and on Instagram and Letterboxd at The OpinionS.
And my name is Dave Riedel. I write sometimes for Salt Lake City Weekly. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and you can follow me on the tweets and the Letterboxd and the IGs as Dave Sees Movies.
And we'll see you next week, folks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.